All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to yet another episode of the Business Motivation Podcast. This is episode number 17, and with us we have a special guest. His name is Glowmaine Rowe. I hope I got the pronunciation, the first name. And he is the founder of
Yeah, man.
Rowe's Plan and Concept. So I got the name right. All right, that's good. All right, so Mr. Rowe, just for a further bit of introduction, you can, add a few things to what I just said in introducing yourself a little further.
All right, no problem. All right, so I am from the parish of Manchester, you know. Currently living in Clarendon. I am married. August the 2nd would have made 2 years, right? I'm a man of different or multiple passions. I mean, one of my passions is actually teaching, right? Um, and also architecture. I like to design. I like to see beautiful things being designed, if you will. I also love math as well. I studied engineering at UTech. So yeah, I'm more of a thinker. Anything that has to do with, stretching your brain, design, architecture, engineering, math, that kind of stuff. I just really like learning and I really like imparting knowledge.
All right, that's a lot there in that introduction. I hope you guys were listening because he made a couple of key mentions there. And one of the things I that stood out to me was that he said he's a man of multiple passions. Now, a lot of people in life struggle to find one passion, and this young man has multiple. So that's very commendable, sir. And congrats on being married. We do support that here on the Business Motivation Podcast. So you said you studied engineering at the University of Technology, and I assume that has something to do with your current business, correct?
Uh, in in a sense, my current business is actually in the area of architecture. Yeah, so I draw and design buildings, for clients. What I didn't mention is that I did an associate in architecture and construction technology at Knox Community College, right? So the engineering knowledge kind of helps to buttress that, but the bulk of the knowledge that I would have to call upon in terms of operating my personal business would be the architecture.
All right. That's very interesting. I didn't know that. And I mean, that's good when you have skills that complement other skills. And then that allows you to, create it into something. And we'll get into more detail in terms of that. But people might be asking, okay, you studied engineering and architecture. I mean, you can get very good paying jobs with those kind of skills. So why do you need to start a business? I mean, for those people who might be asking, what really inspired you to start a business? Why? Who do you come up with this idea?
Well, that's interesting you ask. I was actually, all right. Let me start from here. The working world is very competitive, right? And sometimes even as an engineer, sometimes it's not easiest to find a job that's gonna really pay you what you're worth, right? Because the first job that I worked at, will I mention the name? Uh, I was doing internship there. And when I spoke to some of the engineers that were there and asked them, how much pay are you guys getting? And when they gave the response, I was like, what? Just that? And I'm like, yeah, just that. I'm like, so anyway, when the boss asked, if I wanted to stay after the internship was finished, I told him no. And, he was upset, but um, part of life, part of life. And the second job that I worked at now, I did, what do they call it now? I did material estimation. There's a special software that we use to basically quantify the amount of material that will be needed for each project. And then they'll make a bill of quantities, outlined in the different costs for the different areas of the project, and they would bid for that project, right? It was a fun job, I must say, right? But again, the pay wasn't, the best. So I know there are companies out there in the area of engineering that you can go and you can not only have a good experience, using the knowledge that you'd have garnered through university and making a difference, um, stretching your imagination, using your ingenuity to actually make or attempt to make your country a better place, right? But um, as I said, it's not the easiest thing to get into. So I eventually decided that I was just gonna start my own business, join, plans for persons. Um, I I want to say I kind of made a slight miscalculation with that in the sense that usually what people do is that they have a 9 to 5, they use that 9 to 5 to fund their small business.
Mm-hmm.
And then when that business gets off the ground, then you forsake the 9 to 5 if you should choose. Right? I kind of did it the other way around. Right? I started off the business, didn't have any capital really, anything, just started it off. And it was going good for a while, surprisingly. But then after a while, the clientele started to go down. And then I started realizing that, well, this wasn't probably the best approach. So, and I remember hopefully I'm not going ahead of your question still, but
No man, go ahead, man. Go ahead. I mean, slightly ahead of it, but it's fine. I am learning a lot as you speak. So, I welcome you just letting it out.
okay. All right. So I remember I was in the living room one day and I just thought to myself, what is your passion though? Like other than architecture, what do, what do you see yourself doing? Like if you weren't gonna get paid? I thought about it and I said, I always, since being in university and just observing the lecturers, I always told myself that I would want to become a lecturer someday. Probably not, right away because you have to have certain qualifications, etc., etc. But I was just saying that, I would like to teach, I'd like to impart knowledge, you know, and I just went to the Gleaner, saw some ads, applied for a few high schools, and lo and behold, I got a call, came in for an interview. It was an open post, and I got the job, right? So, and some persons might. I, I remember, I remember one of my old housemates. He and I went to UTech together, but he graduated before me. When he found out that I was teaching, he was saying, "Teaching, Virgin, you know, see how we a degree." And I was like, no, because on this side, I do so much more, right? So not only do I have my small business on the side, I actually for myself tutoring as well. So there's even a scripture that Solomon says that I'm paraphrasing because I don't remember it so well. He says that you should, I think he said you should dip your fingers into many waters because you do not know what trouble will come upon the earth.
Yes.
Meaning, yeah, it's wise to have different streams of income just in case. something happens,
Yeah,
right?
just to interject a little bit, I think I know the text that you're referring to. I guess I would have to paraphrase as well, but yes, I know which one you're referring to. It was a friend of mine. He actually came episode 12 of this podcast. Wazari Johnson. He's a good
Oh,
preacher as well. Don't know if you know him, but he was the one who really
yeah.
introduced that text to me. And I really thought about it and say, you know what? You know, this kind of concept is even in the Bible. There's not only, out there in the world teaching. It has been Bible for years and we're not realizing it until now.
Yeah.
And that's the crazy thing about it. But just to backtrack a little bit about you asking yourself what would you do without being paid? Um, that's a very good That's a very good question, and you found that to be imparting knowledge and teaching. And I mean, that would boost the fulfillment aspect of what you're doing because it's not gonna really feel like a job, right? Because it's something that you like to do. But just a question though. Do you also how can I phrase this? Do you also teach people how to do architectural drawings, or that's just a completely separate thing from the teaching?
Well, actually, I teach, that's a good question. Actually, I teach technical drawing at the high school that I'm at. So, yeah, the very things that I would do in my business, I teach them that at the school. I teach them how to use the software, the different billing codes, the general guidelines of how to draw a residential building. So, yes, the thing that I do in my business, I actually teach that to students.
All right. So kind of a bit of a merging of the two passions I see. And I think
Yeah.
that's a really smart move. And it really helps to make you more sharp in terms of, making your skill even better. Um, Another thing I noticed in what you were saying is that, you admit that you made a mistake. No, a lot of people don't want to admit when they make mistakes. And it just comes to show that even people who have started businesses doesn't mean that they know everything. So this podcast is not
You
about
know.
people who, are perfect, and reach, as we like to say in Jamaica, right? No, this is to show the journey of what people go through because a lot of people who reach somewhere, they started like this, making mistakes, Some have made
Hmm.
even more foolish mistakes. I think it was
Hmm.
one example, the person who invented Hershey's chocolate. I think he went bankrupt like 6 times before his breakthrough, right? So you can never tell what the story is. And of course, this podcast is about revealing some of that story. So for those who have been watching, remember to like and subscribe and share the video and leave a comment. All right. So, Mr. Rowe, do have another question. Um, I know that you're married and stuff like that. When you decided to start your business without having a 9 to 5 to supplement it, I mean, what did your wife say about it? I don't know if I'm getting too personal, but it would be really interesting to find out.
Well, all right. My wife is one of those persons who is very, very supportive, right? Um, she she has, I would say, a similar mindset to my own in that life is not all about just making money, right?
Mhm.
That's a part because chasing a dream and having love in a relationship or in a family will not pay the bills, right? But what we find is that life is about a balance. It's like a balancing act. You can't have a whole lot of money and a little bit of fulfillment and happiness or you can have a whole lot of fulfillment and happiness and no money, right? So you have to try to balance that. So my wife, having that philosophy, recognizing that I was trying to build a legacy for myself, trying to be independent in a sense, because even we're technically exiting the COVID era, right? And we've seen how many persons lost jobs, um, persons went bankrupt, like it was just a financial, it was chaos out there, financially speaking, for a lot of folks, right? So just having something that, nobody can fire you but you, is something that's really good to have. So my wife, seeing the wisdom in that, was there to support me and say, okay, I'll try to help you however I can, help you to promote your business and etc. etc. So she wasn't one of those persons that was like scared and coming with a lot of what if it doesn't work, what if this happen, what if, she wasn't like that. She was supportive and she was just with me for the entire. In fact, if it wasn't for her, I don't think I'd have made it this far, to be honest.
Wow.
Yeah.
Awesome stuff. That is why young men, you need to marry the right woman. All right. Shout out Ramin Virgo. All right. So he found a good woman. All right. That's very good to hear because you know, trust me, it could have gone south. Who knows? One of
Yeah.
the unfortunately one of the biggest reasons for divorce in this day and age is the money problem, right? So anything can happen,
Yeah.
but it's a good thing that you, by the grace of God, made a good choice in your partner, and that has allowed you to develop yourself. Speaking of self-development, I'm gonna go back to the classroom. You said you're teaching now, and I just want to know what is it really like, you know, being somebody that people like students look up to. What's it like being in that classroom and teaching students?
Well, to be honest, that is probably the most fulfilling part of being in the classroom in the first place. Just impacting students and, watching students reach their fullest potential. I remember there was one class I was teaching technical drawing, and, they came into the lab. I was teaching them how to use the software, and they were learning how to actually draw a building, right? And I remember there was this one specific student, and he said, paraphrasing, he said that if I, like he said, if I don't get an A in any subject, I have to get an A in this subject. And he's like, in his mind, I wasn't learning anything that was worthwhile to me up until now. So it's like he found his passion in that class. So whereas he probably wouldn't have put out so much effort in other class and math, Spanish, when he came to that class, when he comes to my class, he's ready, he's going, he's always trying to, be better, always trying to learn, always trying to, and when he can help other students, he helps other students, right? And that gives you so much joy because yeah, some people, some students that come to school and they just come to school to basically show off their shoes, the tight pants, whatever, talk to, the girls. And it's not really here nor dear to them if they really learn something or, find out what their purpose is in life. So to see somebody come into the class and have that reaction, and this would happen in multiple different ways and with different students. That's something that no one can pay you for. The Ministry of Education can't pay you for that, right? So it's technically like that. Um, the students at my school are mostly well behaved. I must give God thanks for that because when there's a lot of misbehavior, fighting and stuff, it makes it really hard to deliver your lesson. So yeah, it's good. It's good. It's going good so far.
All right. Very good to hear that. And yeah, when you follow your passion and you see the fruits of your labor, it's indeed worth more than money. But back to the business now. Rowe's plan and concepts. I think I got it right. Yes. Rowe's plan and concepts. Um, how's it going so far? I know that it's at the moment, is it that it's not the main thing right now? Or, well, I'm sure at some point you plan for it to be, you know, your main thing. But what I'm asking is, how do you plan to, you know, push this further? Expand the business. Like, well, what means are you thinking of in order to make this grow? Because it is one of your passions after all. And in order for businesses to bring in more revenue, it has to grow. So, are there any plans you have in mind? If you don't want to reveal all your secrets, it's fine. But maybe one or two things you probably have in mind. What people can expect from you in the near future.
Well, that's a good question. The first part of the question was, how is the business going now? Well, currently the business is actually going very well now. Thanks be to God. There are clients that I have to be putting off until, a later time because I have so much work on my plate currently, right? And when it comes down to drawing, it's a lot of details, a lot of details. You have to sit around the computer for hours upon hours, right? Um, Sometimes, I would just thought to myself that, hey, where were all these clients when I just started the business, you know? But anyway, um, all things work together for the good of those. So yeah, things are going very well at the moment. Somebody had suggested it to me. Still, I hadn't really sat down and thought about it, but thinking about probably getting a few more folks on board to, try to, share the load and stuff so we can take on a steady income of clients. I know, I think even being on this podcast is a really, it came at the right time because probably now is the time for me to really be thinking about, solid steps to what my next move is gonna be. Because to be honest with you, I'll be honest with you, I didn't know it was gonna, reach to this level so quickly. After coming out of this kind of a drought, like, not so many clients, things not really going on, getting a job, and all of a sudden, boom, like person just coming, calling. So it's like, I know I'm at the point where I probably need to sit down and reassess, okay, where am I going with this? What next? Am I gonna get some staff on board? Am I going to just try to keep it at a minimum so I can focus on all the other stuff, teaching, tutoring, and all the other stuff that I'm involved in. So yeah, I can't really say I have it all planned out what I'm gonna do next, but I do know ultimately though. This wasn't mentioned, I guess, anytime in during the podcast, but another thing, in addition to wanting to be a lecturer, which is still on the table, by the way, is that I want to go into real estate,
Oh,
right? So either that's either that's building houses and selling them, or building houses and renting them out,
wow.
right? So regardless of what's gonna get me there, that's the next goal,
Wow.
basically.
That is massive. Dream big, guys. All right. And try to develop a plan, a strategy. Strategy is not a plan. I guess I should have a podcast um explain the difference between those two. But yeah, maybe we should speak after this, because I might be able to give you a few pointers. But yeah, that's very good. It's perfectly normal not to have everything planned out. We're all still young here, and we're still learning about how to do this. But it's good to have a goal in mind, and however long it takes for you to find out what it takes to reach that goal, I'm sure you will do it. Because of course, this is not a bed of
Yeah.
roses. It's a lot of hard work. So by the grace of God, I really hope you do get there. I really hope you do get there. And yeah, so that your wife will see the benefits of believing in you, right?
Definitely.
Yeah, man. So I do have another question though. So you
Yeah,
said
sure.
you have a lot of clients. So do you have an experience to share about any client that has been, particularly difficult in any way?
Yes. What what having a small business has taught me, if anything, is the power of communication and clear communication. Because sometimes it's easy to assume that the client knows what you've said, or they have, they understand what you're trying to communicate, and just following up with the person consistently can reveal certain loopholes and certain things that were missed, and it can really help in the long run, right? Um, yeah, and customer service is very key as well. You have to ensure that you keep them up to date with the progress of the project, even if, you know, let's say you gave them a deadline, but something came up and you're no longer able to meet that deadline. You have to communicate that clearly. And, as far as possible, give them an explanation as to why. Right. Speaking of, if I've had difficult clients, um, I remember my first project that I did, right? I first, paid their deposit, and plan was that when I finished the joins, they would pay the rest of the deposit. But it being my first project, not having a lot of experience, I actually agreed for the person to pay. It's usually supposed to be a 50% deposit, but I allowed the person to pay like a 30%, because they were probably saying, we don't have all the money, time, and we. And it so happens that when the project was finished, when I finished the project and I, sent them the soft copy, and they're supposed to get some documents submitted to the parish council, and it's like those documents are nowhere to be found. So, trying to dialogue with him and try to follow up with the person, and it technically didn't reach anywhere. So I technically did the project for 30% of original cost. So that was a last year, right?
Wow.
And yeah, it's just one of those things. But like another challenge that we have sometimes is that sometimes persons don't really trust your expertise, right? So for example, if they have an idea in their head and you say, okay, this is what I want. But when you call the parish council, you check out the different requirements, and they're saying, okay, the building has to be X amount of distance from the front boundary, X amount of distance from the sides and the back. You have to have drainage system, sewage treatment, all of that stuff. So when the person comes with this fancy idea and say, yeah, this is what I want, and bam, 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 and when they finish describing what they want, it's like a spaceship, you know? And then when you start to explain to them that, okay, I understand, but based on the stipulations and whatever, this design is not going to work. Here's another design that I would suggest, right? And, I remember that one client that was like, no, no. I spoke to another architect and she said she could do it. And wait. So I was like, if she wants to take the risk and do it, then that's fine. That's up to her. But I have a responsibility to remain professional and just stick within the guidelines. So yeah, you have some clients who can be, as I say, self-willed, you know, put it that way.
All right. So, very thorough answer to the question. And, he did mention losing money. That's what it's gonna take sometimes for us to learn. You win some, you lose some, as they always say. And the key point here is to learn from your losses, learn from your mistakes, right? So you don't make the same mistakes. And you did very well to remain professional and stay within the guidelines because if push come to shove, it might be a legal issue if you don't follow those guidelines,
Yeah.
and nobody wants to get sued or get in trouble with the government or anything like that, especially with a young business, it can shut it down before it even gets off the ground properly. So I commend you for doing that. So I mean, you have to protect yourself as well as, dealing with others and trying to solve their problems. So you have to get that balance in as well. So Mr. Rowe, bringing this down to a close, just want to end it more on a positive note though. Do you have anything encouraging to say for a young man or a young lady who would want to enter this kind of field, or for your potential clients, more of what you have to offer them? Go ahead.
All right. So first, with the encouragement, I would say sit down and try to figure out what your passion is. That's key. Whether you have to read a book, you have to go on Google, you have to watch YouTube videos. There's material out there. We're living in an age of technology, right? There are career tests that you can do. Various things that can help you to figure out what am I good at? What do I like? And sometimes it's not even what you're good at, Sometimes it's just what you like. And based on you doing what you like, you eventually become good at it. Right? So find out what your passion is. That's number one. And then number two, try to figure out what is the easiest, the most cost effective, and the shortest way to reach in there, live in that passion. And number two, try to remain consistent, right? Try to remain consistent. Was that number two or number three? I don't remember. But the
I
point
think
is
it's
that
number three.
number three, try to remain consistent. There will be days when, even while you're living your passion, some things may come up and make you want to rethink, right? But just try to remain consistent. Better days will come. It can't rain. It can't rain every day, right? So that's what I would say. Number one, figure out what your passion is. Number two, find the easiest, cheapest, the quickest way to get in there. Because sometimes energy can be lost trying to do it the long way, right? Three, stick to it. Stick to it, stick to it, stick to it. Right? That's number three. Um, and in the end, by the grace of God, you will achieve what you set out to achieve from the get-go. And for my clients, I just say, stop on by. We offer good customer service, I'm a friendly person, approachable, and the costs are very, very reasonable. We don't try to just give a price or whatever. We try to negotiate with the clients and figure out what can they afford, what compromises can be struck. So to be honest, if I was a client, I would want to work with not bringing her anything, but that's just the kind of, you know, person I am and the kind of service I offer. Because I also want the client to be happy. I don't just give a service. I want people to be satisfied. Right? That's like the goal for my business, to make the clients satisfied. Right? So yeah,
All
that should
right.
be it.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Rowe. So if you want professional drawings and professional customer service, you know where to go. Of course, the links to his social media will be in the description. And of course, my links will be there as well. You know where to find me by now. This has been episode 17 of the Business Motivation Podcast. I think this was a very good conversation, and look to speaking to Mr. Rowe further. Who knows? He might come back on the channel. Who knows? All right. So for those who have been listening, thank you very much. Remember to like, subscribe, and share, and leave a comment. All right. And of course, stay tuned for the next episode. All right. So this is goodbye from me. I'm Matthew Farquharson, the Biz Motivator, and over to you, Mr. Rowe.
Yes, and I'm Glowmaine Rowe, the the founder of Rose Plans and Concepts. And yeah, as you said, like, share, subscribe. I didn't really say it to him, but I'm really proud of, this channel that he has. And I really hope that people are motivated, because look around us. A lot of young people are doing everything else but stuff like this. Right? So yeah,
Right.
like, share, subscribe, and keep on supporting, my business and his channel.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Rowe, and thank you for watching. All right. So we'll see you next time.